So today we're going to be debunking Hoya myths. Hello planty friends, thank you for coming to Mindfully Growing. I'm Kenz if you don't know me already, and if you do, welcome back. So, like I said, today, Hoya myths, we're busting them. So these are some things that you've seen in some plant groups or care guides, but they're not always entirely true. Let's clear them up so you and your Hoyas can get back to what you're doing and thrive. Myth 1. Hoyas only bloom when root bound. So this is probably the number one myth I hear, and it's not true. It's just not true. Being root bound doesn't actually trigger flowers, unfortunately. That's just the case. What actually matters is maturity and stored energy and plenty of light. Those are three things that you can give a Hoya that will make it sure to bloom. A freshly repotted Hoya can absolutely bloom if those needs are met. And I think this myth stuck around because people usually don't repot often. And by the time your Hoya blooms, it just happens to be root bound. Like it's kind of like correlation does not cause, all right, correlation is not causation, there we go. But root bound is not like the magic button. It's not the magic switch, whatever. And speaking of conditions, let's talk about humidity, because that's another area where Hoyas get misunderstood. So the second myth is that Hoyas need super high humidity to survive. And that is also not true. They enjoy humidity. It helps the leaves come in bigger and shinier, and it can speed up growth, but they don't need rainforest conditions to stay alive. Many Hoyas are perfectly fine in normal household humidity around 40 to 50%, basically what I have here in Colorado. I have plenty of Hoya that have bloomed in non-super humid conditions, just sitting out in ambient heat. So don't stress if you don't have a humidifier, because your Hoya is not doomed. Now, this next one might surprise you because it's about growth speed. Number 3, Hoyas are slow growers. Some are, especially the thick-leaved types, but many Hoyas are actually pretty fast once they're settled. Pubic Calyx, Australis, and Carnosa, and Verticillata can take off like crazy with enough light and nutrient. Most of the time, when people complain about slow growth, it really isn't because the plant isn't getting enough light. Before you blame the Hoya, check your setup, because your setup might be having something to do with it. Since we're on the topic of light, let's address another big misconception. Myth number 4. Hoyas are low light tolerant. I'm smiling because I thought this. They'll survive in lower light, yes, but they won't really thrive. Hoyas are light-hungry plants. Bright indirect light or grow light is necessary. It is non-negotiable. A Hoya in a dim corner might live, but it will be sparse, leggy, and probably never flower. So if you've been waiting years for blooms, it's almost always because the plant just isn't getting enough light. And while we're talking blooms, here's a mistake that can really set you back. Myth number 5. You should cut off the peduncle after flowers fade. Definitely don't do that. Do not do that. That little nub where the flowers grow in is called a peduncle, and Hoyas reuse it over and over to bloom again. If you cut it, the plant has to grow a brand new one before it can flower again, which slows everything down. Think of peduncles like reusable bloom spots. And the more your plant keeps them, the more flowers you're going to see in the future. And it's honestly super cool because with each flower, they get a little bit longer. And so like you can see the length of bloom time just in the length of that part of the peduncle. All right, so we know light and peduncles matter. But what about feeding these plants? Myth number 6. Hoyas don't need fertilizer. I don't know who came up with this myth. I don't, because that is ridiculous. Hoyas will survive without it for sure. But if you want to help them thrive, fertilizer makes a big difference. A balanced feed during the growing season helps produce fuller vines, bigger leaves, and more flowers. I think this myth comes from their reputation as tough survivors, which is true, but survive and thrive are two very, very different things. And finally, let's put an end to the biggest misconception of all. Myth number 7. Hoyas are delicate or hard to grow. Not really. Some species can be a little fussy, but the majority are very hardy. There are a lot of species that are especially bulletproof if you give them light and don't overwater. They only seem like divas because they look exotic and they have those gorgeous flowers, but the truth is most Hoyas are way easier than plants like calatheas or Somanthurium. So those are the 7 big Hoya myths. Busted. Which of these have you heard before, and did any of these surprise you? Let me know in the comments. I'm very curious. And if there are any other Hoya myths that you've come across, drop those in the comments as well. And maybe I'll do a part 2. Thank you for hanging out with me and my Hoyas. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe if you want more content like this. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.